FBI Director Cassandra Harris confronts racist police officer in roadside showdown. In a tense encounter that would leave most people rattled, FBI Director Cassandra Harris, a 40-year-old African-American woman, found herself caught in a confrontation with a police officer during what should have been a routine drive home. But the events that unfolded on a quiet suburban road soon became anything but ordinary. What started as a simple traffic stop escalated into a test of power, race, and authority. Harris, one of the most powerful law enforcement figures in the country, not only defended herself with calm precision, but ultimately became the catalyst for systemic change within her local police department. It was late in the evening when Cassandra Harris, the first African-American woman to serve as the director of the FBI, finished a long day of work at the Bureau's headquarters in Washington, D.C. Tired but determined, she was ready to head home to a quiet evening. As she cruised down a suburban road in her sleek black SUV, the reflective glow of headlights from a few passing vehicles illuminated the darkening street. But suddenly, flashing red and blue lights appeared in her rearview mirror, accompanied by the blaring sound of a siren. Harris, aware of the legal speed limit and confident that she hadn't broken any traffic laws, was perplexed. With a furrowed brow, she pulled over to the side of the road, rolling down her window to see what was going on. A tall white police officer, Officer Mark Benson, approached the vehicle with a frown. Without any introduction, he coldly informed Harris that she was being stopped for security reasons and demanded her vehicle registration and driver's license. Despite the officer's rude tone and the absence of any clear explanation for the stop, Harris complied, handing over the necessary paperwork. Yet, even as she waited for the officer to return to his patrol car, she could feel the tension mounting. Having spent much of her career in law enforcement, Harris was no stranger to being treated with disrespect, particularly due to her race. But no matter how many times she had experienced racial profiling, it never felt comfortable. When Officer Benson returned to her vehicle moments later, the situation quickly took a turn for the worse. He demanded to see Harris's ID, despite her already providing the required documents. "Can you tell me why you are asking for it?" Harris responded, her voice calm but firm. Benson's tone grew more aggressive as he sneered. "You have a suspicious attitude. No one like you would drive a car like this unless there was something fishy going on." Harris was taken aback by his remarks, but maintained her composure. "Suspicious attitude?" she asked. "What are you basing that on?" Benson continued to escalate the situation, crossing his arms and taunting Harris with insults that reflected his clear prejudice. "If you don't produce ID, I have the right to take you to the station," he threatened. At this point, Harris knew she had to remain calm. Her years of experience in law enforcement had taught her that her voice and reasoning were her strongest tools in a situation like this. "Sir, your request is illegal," she said firmly. "I have provided all the necessary documents required by law." But instead of backing off, Officer Benson's hostility only deepened. "People like you shouldn't challenge the authority of the police," he said, using a racial slur that struck Harris like a blow. The words were painful, but they weren't new. Harris had endured similar racism and discrimination throughout her life and career, but now, in the face of blatant abuse, she knew she could not let it slide. The confrontation continued to escalate. Benson, still not satisfied, crossed the line from verbal threats to physical intimidation. He placed his hand on his gun belt, sending an unmistakable message that he was prepared to use force. The tension in the air was thick, as the officer's anger and arrogance began to radiate outward. "Sir, you are abusing your authority," Harris said, her voice calm but unwavering. "If you persist, you will be held accountable." The words hit a nerve. Officer Benson's anger flared, and he took another step forward, his finger tightening on the grip of his gun. "If you don't cooperate, I can arrest you right here," he warned. It was clear that this was no longer a routine traffic stop. Harris realized she had to take further action before things spiraled out of control. She made the decision to call for help, knowing that bringing in a higher authority would put an end to this madness. "I suggest you call your superiors here immediately," she said coolly. "We will deal with this matter with the involvement of higher authority." Benson, unfazed, dismissed the suggestion with a sarcastic laugh. Call a superior? Who do you think you are? Harris remained resolute. You will regret that decision. That was when Officer Benson pulled his weapon and pointed it directly at Harris, ordering her to exit the vehicle. Get out of the car right now. Put your hands on your head. But Harris, though shocked by the sight of a gun aimed at her, didn't panic. She slowly exited the vehicle, phone in hand. She knew she was dealing with a man who was abusing his power, and she wasn't going to back down. With quiet determination, Harris dialed the sheriff's office. This is Cassandra Harris. I am being pulled over by an abusive police officer. I need the sheriff's presence immediately. Officer Benson's confusion was palpable. Who are you calling? Do you think you can get away with this? But Harris didn't answer. Instead, she calmly continued the call, providing her location. When the call ended, she looked at Benson, unflinching. The sheriff is on his way. If I were you, I would think very carefully about my next move. The officer, once brimming with authority, hesitated for the first time. His gun, still aimed at Harris, wavered slightly as his confidence faltered. The arrogance was gone, replaced by uncertainty. It wasn't long before the sound of more sirens filled the air. Sheriff David Morales, a seasoned lawman with nearly 30 years of experience, arrived on the scene. His eyes immediately locked onto Officer Benson, who had still not lowered his weapon. The sheriff's stern voice echoed in the tense air as he ordered, "Put that gun down right now." "What the hell are you doing?" Realizing the gravity of the situation, Benson lowered his weapon, but his stammering excuses did little to justify his actions. "Sir, I was just doing my job." This woman refused to show ID and was uncooperative. Cassandra, ever composed, stepped forward. "Thank you for coming, Chief Morales. I think we need to have a serious conversation about this officer's behavior." The sheriff turned to her with surprise in his eyes. "You, Director Harris?" he asked quietly. It was then that Officer Benson realized just who he had been confronting. His face went pale as the full weight of the situation sank in. He stammered, "Director Harris? You mean?" "Yes," Harris replied, her voice sharp. "I am Cassandra Harris, Director of the FBI, and this officer not only abused his authority, but threatened me with a weapon without just cause." The sheriff's face hardened as he turned to Benson. "Do you know that your actions violated department policy and could have serious legal consequences?" As news of the incident spread, the public's reaction was swift and furious. Social media erupted with calls for accountability, and major media outlets covered the story extensively. In response, Sheriff Morales initiated an internal investigation. Body camera footage from Officer Benson's patrol car was collected, revealing a clear pattern of racial profiling, abuse of power, and racist language. The evidence was undeniable. Officer Benson's actions violated not only department policy, but also the trust of the community he was sworn to protect. The story quickly went viral, becoming a flashpoint in the ongoing national conversation about police reform and racial injustice. The local police department faced mounting pressure from the public to take decisive action. During a press conference, Sheriff Morales publicly acknowledged the department's failure. He apologized for the incident and vowed to ensure that such behavior would not be tolerated again. "This is unacceptable behavior from an officer of our department," Morales said. "We are committed to taking action to protect fairness and the community's trust." Harris, standing beside him, addressed the media with a powerful message. "I am not here to ask for justice for myself," she said. "I am here to ask for a transparent system where no one is afraid of the people who are supposed to protect them. That is not just individual responsibility. It is an institutional responsibility." Her words were met with applause, but Cassandra knew the fight was far from over. As part of the investigation, Officer Benson was fired from the police force. The disciplinary board's decision was made public, and it was revealed that Benson would no longer be eligible to work for any other law enforcement agency. The consequences were swift, and Benson's once prominent career was now in ruins. In a brief interview, he admitted, "I made a mistake. I didn't think it would get this far. I apologize for letting my prejudice cloud my judgment." But his apology came too late to save his job or restore his reputation. However, this incident was more than just the termination of one officer. It became a catalyst for change. In response to public outcry and Cassandra's advocacy, Sheriff Morales introduced a series of reforms designed to prevent such incidents in the future. These measures included mandatory anti-racism training for all officers, the installation of cameras on all police vehicles to ensure transparency, and the creation of a hotline for citizens to report police misconduct without fear of retaliation. Cassandra Harris, using her platform as FBI director, worked tirelessly to advocate for broader reform. At a national level, she pushed for these measures to be adopted by law enforcement agencies across the country. This is a systemic issue, Harris stated in a nationally televised interview. We need to build a system where everyone is treated fairly, regardless of race or status. In the months that followed, the story of Cassandra Harris's roadside confrontation with Officer Mark Benson became a symbol of the fight against police misconduct, racial profiling, and abuse of power. Her courage, determination, and advocacy inspired millions, drawing attention to the need for continued reform within law enforcement. For Harris, the incident was not just about a personal confrontation with a rogue officer. It was about highlighting a larger issue within the justice system, one that affects countless individuals across the country. Her efforts contributed to a growing movement demanding fairness, accountability, and transparency from the police. As she reflected on the events, Harris remained steadfast in her commitment to creating a better future. "This is just the beginning," she said. "We have a lot of work to do, but we are on the right path." Indeed, the road to justice may be long, but Cassandra Harris proved that standing up for what is right, no matter the odds, can pave the way for a brighter, more just tomorrow. Thank you for listening. God bless you. See you in the next video.